I thought I was to die. I only didn't want to die as a coward. But I said, even if I have to die, let me not die as someone who agrees with killers.
Il y a des gens qui vont se dire pourquoi ça s'était passé. Il y a des gens qui n'acceptent pas. Je ne sais pas si réellement il le dit en vérité, mais il y a des gens qui disent qu'il n'y a pas eu le génocide dans notre pays.
I think the story is ultimately about hope and staying the course in the face of all obstacles, which is what this, amazing man, Paul Rusesabagina, was able to do.
A decade ago, one of the greatest atrocities of the 20th century occurred. More than 800,000 people were murdered in Rwanda in just over 100 days, while the rest of the world stood by and did nothing. Well, one man did do something. He saved the lives of more than 1,200 people by sheltering them in his small hotel. His name is Paul Rusesabagina, and his story is told in the movie Hotel Rwanda. Recently, Rusesabagina visited the Missouri Historical Society here at the Missouri History Museum in Forest Park, and he granted only one interview to MHS and HEC TV. Here's our conversation with our reluctant hero, Paul Rusesabagina. Welcome to St. Louis.
Thank you.
Let's start with 1995. Paul Rusesabagina was a guy doing what?
Paul Rusesabagina was a hotel manager working for Sabina Airline. Sabina Airline is a Belgian airline company. So I was a general manager in their hotels.
Well, is there any hint at all about what was happening to your country, what was about to happen to your country, what was about to happen to you?
Well, we could see right from the beginning that there was something was going wrong somehow, somewhere. Especially when the war broke out in 1990, all of us could sense what was going to follow.
Well, honestly, most people don't understand what was going on.
Well, there has always been conflicts between Hutus and Tutsis in Burundi and Rwanda because both countries have got the same people. Since 1959, when for the first time 200,000 Rwandese flee away to the country and went to Burundi, to the neighboring Congo and Burundi and Uganda and Tanzania. And in 1972, there was also another kind of genocide in Burundi, which ended up in 1973 in Rwanda as well. In 1990 then, when a war broke out in Rwanda, we saw that the war was those Tutsis who went away in 1959 and 73 from Rwanda, who attacked Rwanda at that time. And then there was also a kind of tension. When after the war, the Hutu-Tutsi war started, Hutu president was killed in Burundi on October 21st, 1993. So there was a kind of tension in the whole region.
Well, now you've got this tension, so let's go back a little ways. What is the genesis of this fight between the Hutus and the Tutsis?
The genesis of that actually started late 1800s with the colonization, with the Germans. The Germans, when they came in, Rwandese were speaking one language, Rwandese and Burundese. We were linked by intermarriages. Our ancestors have always been intermarried. Myself, I was born in a mixed family. And then we were also linked by the same culture. There's no Hutu culture, no Tutsi culture. We were all of us mixed, all in the rural areas. There is no Hutu land, no Tutsi land. So it was not easy to colonize such people. That is why then Germans tried by all means to divide and rule. And then they took Tutsis and ruled with them for about a half a century.
Well, you've got this situation where most of the world is frankly unaware of what's going on in Africa. And you've got these two issues which really boils down to colonization. Wasn't this really about colonization?
Oh, yes, of course. And also in 1918, when Germans lost the war, World War I, Rwanda was given to Belgium. And Belgium did never change the German politics. They maintained it and made it worse. Because in 1935, when they made the first Rwandan IDs, they mentioned Hutu and Tutsis in the IDs.
The monsieur identity card.
In 1959, when Hutus also took over, it was a Hutu revolution, not a national revolution. Then, when Hutus took over from Tutsis and Europeans of course, went to Europe, and Tutsis had to stick around in neighboring countries. That is how then the first exodus started in 1959.
So, what is the actual difference between a Hutu and a Tutsi?
According to the Belgian colonists, the Tutsis are taller, more elegant. It was the Belgians that created the division.
How?
They picked people, those with thinner noses, lighter skin. They used to measure the width of people's noses. The Belgians used the Tutsis to run the country. Then when they left the power to the Hutus. And of course, the Hutus took revenge on the elite Tutsis for years of repression. Am I telling the truth, Paul?
Yes, unfortunately. Please take this to the general. Benedict is our finest journalist in Kigali, an expert on the subject.
So what are you, Paul?
I am Hutu. Gentlemen.
Well, what's interesting to me is that you've got this situation where you say there's no culture and no land to divide these people, and yet, well, really, don't you know if you're a Hutu? Don't you know if you're a Tutsi? How do you differentiate?
Actually, there's no difference as such. There is no difference as such, and in many places of Rwanda, you'll see that Hutus and Tutsis have been mixing, so that for about 200 years, you never know who is who. When it came to kill, people killed only their neighbors to have their goods.
So you're telling me that these folks were hacking away at their neighbors, killing their neighbors, and driven by greed. They wanted what they had. They wanted their property.
In Rwanda, impunity has been always a problem. In 1959, all of those people who left the country, all of their belongings were taken by their neighbors. And those people were never brought to justice. In 1973, it was exactly the same thing. 1994, exactly, I saw the yesterday's victims, the Tutsis who have been victims. When they came back, I also saw them breaking doors, just getting installed in the neighbors' houses or in beautiful houses only because they appreciated those houses. I saw them breaking shops, going behind the counters, and they started selling what they saw in the shops. And you can, even now, those people are still staying in those houses. They are still occupying those shops. Sometimes you wonder. The history always keeps on repeating itself, but does never teach us any lesson.
Well, let's talk about your personal situation. I mean, you're a hotel manager. You're just doing your job. Am I wrong? You are just doing your job when all this breaks out.
Actually, I believe that this was the best way of doing it, because I had many different people coming to the hotel. The militia were coming in. The army was also coming in and going out. They were threatened, refugees, Hutus and Tutsis, all together. And also my employees, if I had changed, if I did not manage to be a hotel manager, it would have been a disaster. And so I decided to remain a hotel manager who goes to his office, despite the fact that I had a lot of different problems. I remained hotel manager, and I think that was the secret.
There will be no rescue, no intervention force. We can only save ourselves. Most importantly, this cannot be a refugee camp.
The Interahamwe believe that the Mikolin is a 4-star Sabina hotel. That is the only thing that is keeping us alive.
Okay, Mr. Hotel Manager, you've got all this violence around you. You've got these marauding crowds and militiamen. You've got people coming to your hotel looking for sanctuary, and you know that helping one side or the other could put you in great harm's way. So how do you manage that? How do you manage all of those pressures?
I will tell you that in order to control someone, for instance, the militiamen and soldiers, in order to control someone, you've got to get that person near to you so that you can know what he or she thinks. You can talk regularly, keep in touch. That is the only way of one knowing what people think.
Well, you know, here in the West, we heard about these hackings, we heard about this genocide, but we never really saw the violent pictures of this. Did you witness this? Did you see these murders?
Well, myself, I did not really witness the killings. But already on April the 7th in the morning, most of my neighbors were killed. Those ones who were not killed happened to come to my house to hide. That is why you saw me when I left my house, going evacuating to the hotel. I had a very wide, big family of 32 people, me included. My 4 children and my wife and I, we used to be 6. But within 2 days, we were 32 people.
So you basically were starting out to try to just save your family.
Right from the beginning, people came to my house. And then when I was evacuating, I had to take them to the hotel.
How many people did you have in the hotel under normal circumstances?
Well, the highest figure I had was 1,268 people.
That's the number of people that you had in the hotel during the genocide?
Yes.
But during normal business, if you had been doing normal business, how many people would have been in the hotel?
It depended. The hotel had only 112 rooms and one apartment for the manager. And all of those rooms they were fully occupied, doubled. The maximum would be maybe about 220 people.
Now these rampaging crowds, these murdering crowds, knew you were harboring these people, didn't they?
Well, yes, and the Mikolin refugees were very well-known people in Kigali. All the politicians in opposition and all the intellectuals, the elite intellectuals were in the Mikolin Hotel. The most prominent businessmen of Kigali were in the Mikolin Hotel. They were very well known of everybody.
Well, what was the atmosphere in the hotel? What was the atmosphere of people who possibly would leave the hotel? And when they left the hotel, they would leave that sanctity. They put themselves in danger.
Well, nobody tried to leave because it was not easy to leave. It was not easy to leave. Unfortunately, now no one was taken out or killed in the hotel. All the refugees, the Mikolin refugees, were the only people who were kept safe from the beginning to the end.
Didn't you worry that someone would try to storm the hotel, try to get in by force? And did they ever try that?
Of course, I was always worried. That is why I kept on phoning in the international community, disturbing the people, the ones I knew, the ones I never knew, telling each and every person what was going on, so that at long last, at the end, we might get help from the outside world.
The United Nations are here now.
We're here as peacekeepers, not as peacemakers.
We've got trouble at the gate.
This is a 4-star hotel, not a refugee camp. I have no means to protect these people. All the whites are leaving, even the UN soldiers.
All the superpowers, everything you believe in, Paul. They're not gonna stop the slaughter.
Well, the UN, at least in the movie that we saw, was portrayed as a pretty impotent organization. Were they really that impotent?
I think the movie has been very fair with the United Nations. You can imagine the United Nations since 1993, when the peace agreement was signed between the rebels and the government, the Rwandan government. Then those people brought a kind of confidence. Most of the people in Rwanda wanted to leave. But when we saw the United Nations coming in, with 2,500 soldiers and a general as their leader. We were very confident. But when the president was killed, the next morning, the prime minister was also assassinated with her 10 Belgian soldiers, bodyguards. From that time onwards, Belgium decided to pull out, backed by the UK, United Kingdom, and the United States. The whole world pulled out. You can imagine the people who trusted the United Nations and gathered in schools, gathered in churches, under the UN protection. When the whole world decided to pull out, they just ran away and left them on their own. I saw many people begging, asking, please take us with you. If you don't, these people are going to kill us. And the world just didn't care.
Well, that had to feel, well, you had to feel like you were all alone in the world. Like, well, you described it as feeling like you were on this island.
I can even call the Michelin Hotel an island of fear in a big sea of fire. That was it, actually. That is the way it was.
How about you? Did you yourself venture outside the hotel? Were you able to move around a little bit?
No. I didn't do it. I just left Michelin twice. Once with the UN soldiers to go to the diplomat for supplies, and the second time with the General Bizimungu, as you have seen in the movie, also to give him some supplies.
Well, bribery plays a large part of this, at least as is portrayed in the movie. Was it easy to bribe these people? Were you able to, did you have to persuade them to take what you offered?
Whoever normally opens his mouth and talks can always come down to a deal. This is my belief.
So it was a matter of making a deal?
Yes, of course.
At some point it had to occur to you, Paul, that I'm dealing scotch or I'm dealing cognac and I'm dealing it for lives.
But no, scotch and cognac was not a kind of dealing as such. Mm-hmm. In our culture, we never corrupt someone with the drinks. Rwandese always sit down and talk around a drink. You can never invite a gentleman without a beer. That is a tradition.
So you were able to just crack open a beer and sit down and cut a deal. Was there any time that you thought maybe you made a deal and you got the best of the deal?
Well, I never sat down and thought that this is the best, the other one will be the second, because I did not have that time. I did not have time, actually. You can imagine a situation whereby you are short of water. Your water supply is cut off. Your electricity is cut off. You are short of food. And yet, you've got 1,000 people who have got to eat a meal. And yet, those people are threatened from all the corners. So you can never have time to sit down and set up goals and objectives and evaluations.
So how about the threats? Were there ever threats directed at your family, directed at you?
Before or during the genocide?
Before, after, during?
Before, in 1993, late 93, I was threatened to be killed. I was almost killed with my two daughters. It was just daytime. At around 1, I was driving home with my two daughters, and I was attacked by either the militia or the presidential bodyguards. They were also, most of the time, in civilian clothes. So I happened to escape, and from that day onwards, I just shifted from my house to the Diplomat Hotel. But unfortunately, I did not, and maybe fortunately as well for my neighbors, I went back to my house. I did not go to stay in the hotel again. I went back to my house. And when I was evacuated, I took my neighbors with. That maybe was for their luck.
So it was faith in that put you back at your house rather than at the hotel?
Thank God.
Because if you had come out, if you'd gone back to the hotel, chances are you wouldn't have been able to get out of there.
You knew that those people were going to be killed.
Well, did the rebels, the militia, or those marauding crowds, or anybody at any time come inside the hotel and actually threaten you?
Only threatening.
Threatening?
Almost killing.
Almost killed? Describe that, will you, Paul?
Almost killing. I remember it was April 23rd, for instance. That night I had gone to sleep very late. I went to sleep very late at around 4 a.m., early in the morning. I spent my night sending faxes and phoning the whole world. And when I went to sleep, 2 hours later, at 6, I was woken up by soldiers with an order from the Ministry of Defense to get out all of those people who were in the hotel. And by then, I had at least 800 people, 800 people who were staying in the hotel up to that date. So they wanted me to turn everyone out. I happened to negotiate again to deal. It was very early in the morning. It was not easy to phone the West. In Paris, it was already very early. It was 6. In Brussels was the same. No one was in the office, and I never had any mobile phone from all of those guys, the high-ranking people. I could only disturb them in their offices. The White House was also closed. It was midnight. So I had now to come down and negotiate and deal with Rwandese high-ranking military leaders. And within half an hour, I got those guys out.
You got them to go?
Well, not me, but the Assistant General Chief of Staff of the Gendarmerie came in and got them out.
Well, he didn't do it out of the goodness of his heart, did he?
Well, to him, it was not very hard because he knew each and every person, and he knew how to go about it.
My name is Paul Rusesabagina. I am the house manager of the most luxurious hotel in the capital of Rwanda. A place that my family and I happily called our home until the day everything changed.
Daddy, there are soldiers on the streets.
Well, let's look at the movie Hotel Rwanda. Is that an accurate portrayal of what happened to you?
Actually, Hotel Rwanda is in my story at 90%. A few things have just been added.
Hollywood.
Just not really, it is not a Hollywood stuff. Yeah. And that was a part of our agreement. Not to manipulate me, my image, the Hollywoodian style. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You wanted to make sure that the person who played you, though, was very much like you.
I remain Paul and a hotel manager. I'm still a hotelier even if I have left the hotel industry.
Well, earlier today you told me that you like people. You enjoy serving people. That's what you do. You enjoy all of that. It's kind of in your blood, isn't it?
Well, I do not know. It just comes itself. I don't do any effort to get it.
It's natural for you?
I think.
How much did it help you, Paul, to be able to charm people the way you can charm people? How much did it help you in this desperate situation?
Well, so far it has helped me at all the levels. Wherever I went, I have always been in good terms with the people. Yeah.
If you had it to do all over again, Paul, if you had to do this again in this situation, how would you do it? Would you do the same thing?
No, I can't tell you what I would do because I do not know how I would deal with another situation, rough situation like that one, even if I don't wish to face it again.
Your wife and your children, they're in good shape now that they've survived this ordeal?
Well, they are doing very well. My two daughters are married, actually. And the elder one has got 2 daughters. She's got her BS in accounting. Her sister is also married and has got a son. And my son has got also, he's getting his BS in June. So the young one is now 12 and a half years old. And the 2 daughters, the 2 nieces to my wife, are also grown-ups. The elder one, who was 22 years when their parents were killed, she's now 13 years old. She's doing very well. She's attending the secondary school. And her sister, who was 9 months, not as you have seen in Hotel Rwanda, she was a baby. She's now going to the secondary school also next year. Everybody's doing very well. We had to introduce the genocide to the young ones. The elder ones were aware of everything. We had to talk about it slowly and share that burden. and let those nieces know that we know they are real parents, but slowly, until they happen to sit down with us, watch Hotel Rwanda, and once and twice, and also on a very big screen in the Berlin Film Festival.
Okay, they watched it, and you all watched this together. Could you explain it to them?
Yeah, and explaining a lot of details.
Were you happy with the way this movie was handled?
Well, the whole movie actually, I can't tell you that I was not happy since I'm a part of the movie from the time I sat down with the filmmakers, from a lot of time I spent with the actor who played my role. So it was, the movie is just my story.
Well, it is a story that has made you an international celebrity. I mean, you've gone from this hotel manager to this international celebrity. How are you handling this?
I don't know. That is the people who can always say, me, I do not know whether I'm a celebrity or not. But I don't think so.
Well, are you in touch with any of the people who were in the hotel at the time?
Many of them, many of those people were in the hotel, and I was very much moved to see the way I was welcomed when I went back 7 years, after 7 years in exile, when I went back with the filmmakers in February 2003, 2 years ago. Right from the tarmac, from the plane, I saw Mikolin survivors who came to welcome me. They were there. And when I went down to the airport lobby, I saw a very big crowd of people who everybody wanted to just to hold me very tight, and many of them in tears. And they had organized even a party for that. And the Mikolin employees were lovely as well.
Well, the last thing I'd like to ask you is, will your country ever be at peace? Do you think it will ever be at peace?
I believe always in peace, and I'm someone who believes in dialogue. I believe always in dialogue. And through dialogue, we'll always get down around the table, talk, and negotiate. And both parties, Hutus and Tutsis, come to an agreement.
Should the world be ashamed?
Well, the world will not be ashamed because we expect the international community to be the moderators. They will be a part of it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Paul Rusesabagina has left his native Rwanda and moved to Belgium with his family. But he has not given up the dream that someday Rwanda will live in peace. He has also not given up the dream that he may help prevent genocide all over the globe. And he'd like to enlist help. And you can get in touch with Paul Rusesabagina at this website.